we went ahead and, just real quick recap translating algebraic expressions. Today we're going to quickly go through evaluating algebraic expressions and completing that Desmos activity if you have not done so already, okay? Now, evaluating algebraic expressions is pretty simple, pretty straightforward, and most of you guys, I feel, already know how to do it. If you have finished that Desmos, okay, please let me know, because I do have another assignment on this topic that you could complete, okay? So, what I'm going to do is I am going to just do 3 example problems, okay?
I got a 133%.
Right, I believe it's a typo. It's right. It's 133.3 yada yada percent is like 4 out of 3, correct? But yeah, it's I think it's a typo. It's like something wrong with the Desmos code. There's 2 mistakes on there that it's not gonna. One of them it's an equal sign. It should be a minus sign, and the other one. It evaluates the answer. It says b is equal to negative 11, but for whatever reason, it's evaluating it as positive 11. So for those ones, it might say that you got it wrong when you actually got it right. Just be aware of that, and if you need, if you have a question, just ask me. But I'm going to go ahead and just do some example problems by hand on how to do these evaluating algebraic expressions, and just keep in mind as I'm going through this that since you have access to Desmos, all you have to do is write in the exact same expression with your variables replaced with specific values, right? Okay, so the first one I want to talk about, okay, is all right, so this first one, okay, some of you guys may recognize this if you've seen the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. This is the solution for what c equals, right, or the hypotenuse of a right triangle. Okay? We're going to evaluate this expression when a is equal to 3 and b is equal to 4. And the way we're going to do that is pretty simple. All we're going to do is just replace wherever I see a with 3 and wherever I see b with 4, right? Because this symbol up here means that a is the same thing as 3 and 3 is the same thing as a. So whenever I see an a, I'm just going to substitute in a 3. Oh, also real quick, whenever you do substitutions, whether they be on the, right, whenever you do substitutions, whether they be on the computer or by hand, whenever you substitute in a value for a variable, be sure to include that value in parentheses, like so, right? The square root, or sorry, 3 squared, right? Parentheses. Okay. Same thing for b, plus since b is the same thing as 4 and 4 is the same thing as b, we can just replace b with 4. Okay? And now we have this expression that we can evaluate. Okay. Now, I would like to point out, if we have a radical like this, okay, with other operations under the radical, treat the radical as if it were parentheses, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is do those exponents. So who can tell me what 3 squared is? Huh? 6? Not quite. That's 3 times 2. 9. Good. Remember, when we're squaring stuff, we're doing that number multiplied by itself. So 3 times 3 is 9. And what is 4 squared? Not 8, right? And that would be 4 times 2. 16, good. Okay. Now 9 plus 16 is going to give us right? Huh? 25, good. Hey, and now, hey, 25 is just 5 times 5. And if we're saying the square root of 5 times 5, well, that's just like saying the square root of 5 squared. And if I'm doing the square root of 5 squared, since square root and squaring are inverse operations, right, that just leaves me with 5. And that is my answer. Any questions about this? Again, if you're using Desmos, you can just type this in, and then in place of A, you just put 3, and then in place of B, you just put 4, right? And then it'll just spit you out 5. Okay. Right, if there are no questions, I'm going to move on to another example, a little bit more complicated, but same steps. Hey, so now we have this expression on the board, a little bit more complicated. We're going to be the same steps, okay? This is actually the quadratic formula, which we'll get into if we get into quadratic functions, or, well, if you do with me, right? This will give you any solution for any equation where x is raised to the power of 2, right? So like x squared. Right, if you have any equation with x squared, this will give you the solution to any equation that has x, your variable, raised to the second power. Okay? Now we're asked to evaluate this when a is equal to 1, b is equal to 6, and c is equal to 2. So all we're going to do is just replace wherever I see b with 6, wherever I see a with 1, and wherever I see c with 2. All right. So we have, again, whenever I'm substituting, I'm going to put it in parentheses, put my number in parentheses. All right. B is going to be 6, so that's 6 squared, minus 4 times A is 1, and C is 2. And we are dividing this by 2 times 1. Okay. So now all we do is we just simplify. Again, if you just typed this in exactly how you see it on Desmos, right? Exactly like what I wrote, it would just spit back an answer. But I'm just going to show you how to do it if you're doing it by hand, too, because I think that's good. Okay? So the opposite of 6 is just going to be negative 6. Right? Plus or minus the square root of, remember we're going to do our stuff underneath the square root first. 6 squared is going to be what? 36. Good. All right, 4 times 1 is, what's 4 times 1? 4. Good. Anything times 1 is going to be that thing. 4 times 1 is 4, and 4 times 2 is 8. And we have all of this over 2 times 1, which is just 2. All right. Now, if I have a subtraction, you don't have to do this if you don't want to, but subtraction is kind of, right, I like to get rid of subtraction, just change it to addition, okay? So the way you do that is you just add, right, change this to addition, and then change the sign on this, right? So 36 minus 8 is the same thing as 36 plus negative 8, okay? And that's going to give us negative 6 plus or minus the square root of 28 divided by 2. Okay. All right, now this square root of 28 here. 28 is not a perfect square, right? However, we can simplify it. We can simplify this expression more, even though 28 isn't a perfect square, because 28 has factors that are perfect squares. Okay? Low. All right. Since 28 has factors that are perfect squares, I'm going to show you since 28 is not itself a perfect square, that doesn't matter. We can still simplify it because 28 has factors that are perfect squares, right? Who here can think of a factor of 28? This is kind of a preview for tomorrow, right? But I'm just going to show you how to do this. 7, right? What times 7 will give you 28? 4, good. So, right, the square root of 28 is the same thing as the square root of 4 times 7, okay? And well, hey, 4 is a perfect square, right? 4 is 2 squared. Since 4 is 2 squared, we have a perfect square underneath this radical. And since, right, the product of something underneath a radical is the same thing as the product of radicals,